Welcome, friends. This is Mama Judy here, and I'd like to welcome you to what I'm calling Play Day with Mama Judy, because today that's exactly what we're going to do. There's no outcome in mind. The basis of this is questions I get on how I put my pages together. And while I can't put step by step, I thought I would just take you through a couple of pages and my thinking. The other thing this is designed around is collage papers that you make yourself. So with that in mind, let's get to playing. The first one I want to do is centering around this collage paper that I made last night. And I have to give you the history of this. All of these marks here are because I spilled walnut ink in my art area, and I had to mop it up. But like any good creative person, my first question was, how much of this can I salvage, and what can I do with it? So I took a lot of papers and just blotted them into the mess and came out with random blots, basically. Let me show you some other ones. We'll be looking at these pages. These are all different papers that I use to blot up the mess. And you can see, for example, on these two different papers, the browns came out slightly different. No matter what paper you're using, you're going to get a surprise. So that's our background papers. We'll set those aside. And this is our main focal collage paper. This paper is a piece of coffee-dyed rice paper. Now, normally I like to use papers that have been around the house that are, they're going to be thrown away, but you know that they have a good artistic use. But I love rice paper. I love it because it absorbs inks, it absorbs the coffee. You could eco-dye. If you use any wax, it goes really well. So once I had this paper and I blotted it into my mess, as we call it, to my mistake, I thought, well, what can I do with that? And I love asemic writing. And asemic writing is just basically, a fun way to scribble. I use my non-dominant hand, and I just scribbled all over the spaces. I did it in dark black against white black against some brown. Make sure you can see this. There's some white in here, although it is hard to see the white against the lighter background. And then I just scribbled. So this is my collage paper that I will rip up for what we're going to do on the first page today. The other thing I pulled out is this piece of tissue paper that basically it was the same thing. I was using ink with a stencil on a watercolor page, and I laid the tissue paper down to absorb the extra ink on top of the stencil and got this great pattern. So no matter what you do, whether you call it a mistake or you don't know what you're doing with it, you can make some great marks and patterns for your journal pages. All right, let's go to the basic journal. Oh, excuse me, let me step back. I also pulled out this vintage photo of 3 women. It's probably from the 40s. I don't know anything about it. I got it at an antique store. It says Art Studio, Richwood, West Virginia. I have no idea how West Virginia got out into Central California, but I thought it was a great photo. So here we have 3 ladies, gloves, hats, getting ready, who knows, to go to lunch, to go to church, whatever. They're going to be our focal point. And we're going to kind of design, if you want to use that term and use it very loosely, around this photo. So first of all, we need a background page. Now, on this particular page, I'm sticking with the shades of brown. So what I usually do on any page I create, I call it auditioning. You put things down, they don't work, you take them away, you put something else down. So right now I'm auditioning background pages for these ladies. And let's see what's on the other side. There are some shapes that I like better in my background. Notice how dark that is. And I like the bigger page, first of all, because I am going to be using quite a bit of the collage paper on it. So, I'm going to go with this page, and I'll tell you why. It just fit my eye. Now, I know that probably doesn't mean a lot in technical terms, but it does to me. Here's why. I've got the square of the ladies. I've got what was a credit card that was lying in the puddle, and so I stamped the credit card down. So I've got lots of square shapes to play off of. The next thing I'm going to do, I usually would try to figure out on the page where I want the main piece to go, if I'm working with a photo especially. And I think for right now, I want it to go there. And we won't worry about this curving. In any of your work, if any of your pages curve, you can put them under a book overnight, it'll work, or you can do what I do, you can iron them. I iron more papers around my house than I do clothes. So now, with a photo, you often get a frame around them. So I'm thinking that I'm going to just start ripping this up. I'm going to save this space for something else. And I think I'll start right here. Just going to start ripping. Let me set that up there. And we'll see what we've got. Let's go a little bit more like this. By the way, those are paper clips that were also in that mess. So find anything. And we're going to start right here. Now, that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to move things around a little bit to see if I really want to use this whole thing as a border. And I don't think so. Let me bring in this paper and just slide it and see if there's anything I want to do. Right now I'm just eyeballing. I'm just moving things around, seeing what I like and what I don't like. Ooh, I do like that. And I'll tell you why. I've got circles and I had squares before, so I get different movement. So I think what I'm going to do, rather than try to make it a full-on frame, I'm just going to start with this piece right here. Now, the other thing about photos that I love to do, I don't need all this excess up here. Notice how it almost breaks. It doesn't really tear. I like edges that are not straight. Now, I don't mind leaving a little of that, but let's slip this back like that. Okay, I'm beginning to like that. Can you see the gist of that? You will when I glue it down. And I can work with more of the collage paper if I choose to. Or I can work with some of this, which is, again, a circular pattern. Get in here where you can see that I'm just kind of tearing the guts out of it. And maybe that goes right there. I like that. So, with that in mind, without overthinking it, by the way, which I am prone to do, I'm going to glue this down. Now, I use two types of glue for the most part. I use glue sticks. They're very good. Normally I have those great big jumbo ones, but I couldn't find them. We have the ladies right there. This will be one that I will tell you now will need to be put under a press of some kind. Or if I'm not using the glue stick, let's see if I can show you this without dumping it. I use Mod Podge. I often use other things, but those are the most go-to that I use for sticking things down. Now, especially with tissue paper, if you try to use the glue stick on the back of it, it's probably going to tear. So in this case, I'm just going to put a little of the Mod Podge down where the main part is going to be, and we're going to slip it right there. The other thing I like about this particular piece is I get a little color right there. Not overwhelming color, because again, I'm deliberately staying with shades of brown. So let's make sure that we're really tacking it down. The other thing about tissue paper, if you work with it, you get a transparency. You can actually see the dark from the background coming through, which if you have writing on a page, it's kind of nice. Now, let's take our piece of, do we want the whole thing? I think so. I think we're going to go with the whole length on this. Now, with rice paper, it's so tough that you can actually put it on the back of the rice paper. I like to put it both on the page and the rice paper. So let's make sure we leave all the ladies visible. I have done that before. Whoops. We got a little tail. That's okay. I like little tails. I'm not very much into total symmetry. I like shapes. I like pieces. I like on fabric, torn edges. Now this looks pretty good so far, I think. I'm pretty happy with it, but I just had another thought. One thing that I do quite often in, pardon me while I reach down here. One thing I do quite often in my pages is I use circles. To me, the circles are kind of like the symbol of the circle of life, like in the Lion King, if any of you have seen that. I like to use white as the contrast. So this is a large round top. It just happens to be the top of my white gesso. And I put a little white gesso around the edge. And I'm going to put it right here. Now, I've kind of brought everything together within that circle. What I might also do, this is the top of my Mod Podge, which, by the way, I will be cleaning these lids off later, otherwise they won't come off if I stick them on with this. And I think we'll go this way. I personally, my brain likes threes. So there we have 3 circles. The big one that encompasses the ladies, and then just some accent, which brings in the movement of the different pieces that we've used. So right now, I'm pretty happy with that page. And I'm gonna leave it. Now, I always leave it, and then when I go back through them, there might be a small tweaking that I do. I think I've got enough movement on this page between everything here and the circulars and then the women that I don't need to do anything. But if I were to do something, the most it would be is to use a white gel white gel pen and make some white dots up there, but we'll see. So that is our first page done. And actually, that came together pretty easy, friends. A lot of times I work at whatever page I'm working on and have to put it aside. I have found one thing. You cannot force it. You will not feel good about it if you force it. So if you're having problems, put it aside and come back when you have a different eye. So we're going to stop here and put this one aside. All right, here we go again with the second page. This time I've chosen to go with more of a black theme. I had this piece of old photograph. It was a photograph that was a cast-off by someone who is doing their own developing. And I took that photograph, I can't even tell you what's of, and I dyed it in a rust and coffee dye bath, which comes out black in this case. On the back, which I will use also, but not today, is some great marks. So it's a great thing if you have old photographs you don't know what to do with. Put them in the vinegar water and then the dye or the coffee dye, and you get some great pages. With that in mind, I also chose two photographs, both black and white, different shades of black and white, different types of photographic paper. And of the two, I'm leaning towards this one. There's just some mystery about these old European villages. I took that in Spain somewhere, gosh, probably 45 years ago. So we're going to put the horse one aside for now, and we're going to focus on this one. Now, you could start out just by putting it in the middle, and that in and of itself is fine. You could then do some white. You take your bubble wrap with white or black ink. You could do mark making with ink. You could do all kinds of things, and that would be fine. However, what I want to do is use a piece of this 100-year-old Latin book page that I, again, dyed. It just happened to rip like this, and kind of use it as a border for this. And I have some other pieces that I pulled out because I like them, that kind of fit. This is a stamp with black ink that has encaustic wax on it, so it has a shiny, different texture. This is just a lovely shade of brown off of an envelope that I think goes well with black for accent. And of course, we all know white is a great accent for black. But before we get started, the other thing that I realized is my eye sees two pictures in this one picture. First of all, we're going to use this as a blocker. We have this side of the street. And then we have this side of the street. And because I don't have very many of these photographs, I want to get the most out of it. So what I'm going to do basically right now is pretty much tear it in half. And I'm going to go tear it across the top so it's not just square. I want a little character in it. Don't need all this street. Now, I have an interesting shape, and I have a very mysterious, almost like an alleyway. So we're going to go with that theme, with that idea, which, by the way, I do have to insert, I'm not a good theme person. I like to let things just unfold. So we're going to see what unfolds using what I've put out here. Now, I like this half curvature, and I like the shape of that, but I still want to be able to use some of this. So, and I don't want it to be as wide as it is originally, so we're going to do the old rip and tear and try to get in some interesting pieces off this page, which I confess wasn't hard to do because there was a lot of interest. And we have this old stamp. The Latin actually goes this way. This is a stamp for D, but we don't care what it's a stamp for. And I like angling it. I like it better with the fat part down here. This we're going to keep the same. And we're going to do as much of that as we can. Now, we've got this look, which is fine. But what else could we add to it for a little more interest? Ooh, right there. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But let me, before I forget, go ahead and get this down. This time again, I'm using Mod Podge. It's a little stronger with this type of photograph. To go ahead and put a lot of it on it. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I got to thinking about the trip through that old village. So we got that. And the other thing that we have that's of interest is all the wrinkles in the original photograph. Now let's get this guy down. Little glue on it, a little glue on me. I swear my hands, when I put them under water, it's almost like a second skin comes off because they're so covered with glue. Oh, and ink too. So now we want to put it pretty much like we thought. I think that's close enough. A lot of times, if I'm worried about making sure something sticks down and doesn't have air bubbles, I will take a credit card or something, not using the sharp edge, but lay it down, the flat part, and just go over it to make sure we get air bubbles. Because you'd be surprised, even in something as simple as a collage page, and we can go across the back, you can get air bubbles that then will come up. So that's pretty nice. This I liked right there. I don't need this in down here, but I do like, see, it sticks to me. I do like that right there. And I've already, well, let's see, is it that side or that side that I like? I'm going to audition. That's nice. But this is the side I like, and I think the reason is it's a little lighter. Now, when you do wax on a piece of paper and then you're going to use it later, you do have to put a little extra glue and maybe some weight on it to keep it down real good, which I will do. Do we want that or that? I think we want that. Okay. Let's do our credit card, whatever this is. Now I have all the neutral colors, different shades, different shapes, different textures. I'm really big on different textures, even on paper pages. Now, what about this cute little envelope? Now, here's an interesting phrase. Get back to human. And if I remember right, that's from a candy bar. So we could add that. Ooh, I like that. Let's do that. That was simple. Oh, it's kind of scary when everything seems to be falling into place. But I guess if I'm going to video it, that's what I want. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't always happen that way. I like that. However, I could use a splash of white. So here's where I'm going to use, if I can find it, I was going to use my bubble wrap. But since I can't, there's nothing wrong with a finger. I find my fingers come in very handy. And that's probably why they're always covered with stuff. So, just a little. Don't ask me why I'm sticking with this shape. I thought it would come out more. I think we'll go with a smear. Maybe not. I don't think I like that smear that well. So, let's see what happens. On photographic paper, the slick kind, you can often get paint, or especially, whoops. There. We'll just leave that. I like that. I just want a hint of white. So what I'm going to do, I kind of like that. We'll leave that. Okay. Now, are we 100% happy with that? Nope. So we'll take off what we can, and we'll leave that. Now this is the perfect one for that circle that I used in the last one. And I suppose I'm of the mind that you can't have too many circles, but I will tell you, when I put them into my journal, I try to keep pages with a lot of similar symbols and that type of thing, separated from each other. I think we'll stick with 2. So again, same theme of the circle, different textures, different shapes, and you just audition them. You are the one that will tell you the most what works and what doesn't. Your biggest problem is going to be overthinking it or trying to second guess it. So my advice is just go with your gut, with your heart. If it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't fit your eye, keep playing. So that's our play date today, friends. I hope you'll join me for another one soon. Thank you for coming along.